Two young gymnast sisters vanished without a trace after practice one summer evening in 2010, leaving behind only rumors and unresolved grief. But 12 years later, a man fishing near Lake Arrowhead reels in a weather-worn duffel bag, unleashing a chain of chilling discoveries that finally reveal what really happened to Anna and Lily Romero. The air was cool enough to keep the bugs down, and the water on Lake Arrowhead lay still under a wide gray sky. Chris Talbot, 43, guided his son's cast with a nod and leaned back on the aluminum bench of their small rental boat. His son Nathan sat cross-legged near the edge, pretending to fish while watching something on his phone. Chris was mid-sentence, something about knot tension, when the tip of his rod dipped hard to the left. Not a bite exactly, more like a snag. He stood, adjusted his grip, and pulled whatever it was had some weight, but came loose without much fight. The water rippled as something pale surfaced, caught between algae and roots. Chris leaned forward, reeled in the slack, and raised the end of his line. A pink duffel bag swayed from the hook, heavy with lake water and silt. He unhooked it carefully and set it down between them. "You see this?" he asked his son, who looked up. Confused, the initials AR were stitched into one side in purple thread. Nathan shrugged. "Looks old." Chris tugged the zipper. It stuck halfway. He worked it loose, and the bag opened just enough to reveal the contents: a pair of warped ballet flats, their soles curled inward, a faded, crumpled competition ribbon, still clipped to a safety pin, and tucked in the bottom corner, a folded laminated practice schedule, smudged and barely legible. He held it up and saw the name printed at the top, Anna Romero. He didn't say anything at first, and then he reached for his phone. The front desk at the Arrowhead County Sheriff's Office wasn't crowded when Chris walked in. Carrying the sealed trash bag they'd used to transport the duffel, Deputy Lane McConnell, who'd worked there long enough to remember the original case, opened it, pulled out the ID, and went quiet. "You found this in the lake?" he asked. Chris nodded. "Near the northeast trail drop, where the trees come in close. Just caught it by accident." McConnell didn't touch anything else. He called for the evidence team and stepped into the back. 10 minutes later, 2 investigators and a uniformed ranger were scanning the contents in a sealed conference room, and the room stayed quiet while the rest of the precinct buzzed with radio chatter. The word spread fast: Anna and Lily Romero, missing since 2010. Last seen entering the lot behind Silver Hills Gymnastics. No confirmed sightings, no leads, no recovery until now. At the County Justice Center, Detective Mara Quinlan had just settled into her new cubicle. In cold cases, a place where the only things that moved quickly were printers and coffee pots, her desk was still half empty. She liked it that way. Her background in homicide made her a quiet anomaly, especially after the department shakeup earlier that year. No fanfare for the transfer, just a padded box of files and an assignment roster. Her intention was to slow down, leave the courtroom dramas and media frenzies behind. When the alert came through, she read the name twice. She stood, took the printout, and walked straight to Lieutenant Michelle Langley's office. Langley looked up from her monitor. "You just got here, I know." Langley held out her hand for the report and skimmed it. "The Romero sisters," she said quietly. 12 years physical evidence, confirmed ID. Mara said enough to reopen the case. Langley nodded, then gestured toward the door. "Go." At the forensics lab, the bag was laid out under a soft H halogen ring. A tech in gloves separated each item. Logging condition and integrity, the ballet shoes were placed in a sealed tray. The ribbon, discolored from moisture and algae, still bore the faded logo of a youth competition circuit. The laminated schedule was warped, but mostly intact. Dates from the spring of 2010 were circled in blue ink. Team B Wed 530 was written next to a name, Coach D, at the top of the sheet. Anna Romero, 6th grade, Silver Hills Gymnastics. Mara took one look at it and asked the technician, "Any sign this was planted?" He shook his head. "Fabric's been sitting in water for a while. No recent trauma, but it wasn't down there the whole 12 years. Could have been dropped or moved." She nodded. That part wasn't for him to answer. The file box from the Romero case looked like it hadn't been opened in years. Faded labels, 2 bent corners, a strip of masking tape across the top read, Number 131999. Romero X2 missing detective Mara Quinlan set it down on her desk and opened the lid slowly. Inside were the usual forms: initial incident reports, photos, hand-sketched timelines, copies of school records, and maps of the gym's surrounding areas, with colored markers that had long since faded to smudged yellows and pinks. The girls Anna and Lily Romero were last seen on a Monday afternoon in March 2010. According to the primary report, their mother dropped them off at Silver Hills Gymnastics just before 5:15 p.m. They were supposed to attend a 5:30 practice. Their mother waited in the parking lot for a few minutes, standard procedure, but didn't see anything strange. She drove off when the twins waved goodbye at the gym doors. After that, the record grew thin. The coach, Daniel Laris, gave a written statement through his attorney, Turu. 2 days later, the girls never arrived. He claimed he'd been inside prepping the beam setup and hadn't left the gym floor until after 6 p.m. No one else on staff reported seeing the girls enter the building, but several teammates in handwritten statements given to officers at the time said they remembered seeing Anna's hair ribbon on the bench and Lily's water bottle in the locker area. There was no follow-up. Mara flipped to the incident log. A white van had been reported by a gas station clerk across the street. He said it was idling near the gym entrance that afternoon. No plates were recorded. The tip was logged, then dropped, and there were no notes indicating an effort to locate it. She rubbed her temple. Mara searched for any mention of gym surveillance footage. A single-page stamped evidence log number 146B noted that the hard drive had been reviewed and deemed corrupted due to a failed firmware update. No backup, no recovered segments. She checked the tech report. It wasn't from an outside lab. It was a 2-sentence summary written by the gym's own systems manager, whose credentials weren't listed. The department had simply accepted the explanation and moved on. Mara moved on to the staff interviews. There weren't any. Every single gym employee provided written statements collected and faxed in by their employer's legal representative. No face-to-face interviews, no cross-examination. Larrick's statement was the longest, nearly a full page, but it said nothing useful. He was unaware of any unusual activity, saddened by the disappearance and hoping for the best. Mara scanned the case file index again, and there was no transcript of a detective visiting the gym in person. She checked the duty roster from that week. Nothing matched, and she found it buried in a line from a team mom's statement. Coach Larrick had someone watching the younger girls during warm-ups. I don't remember his name. He wasn't staff, just a friend. I think he was around a lot. That sentence had no follow-up note, no ID, no photograph. Mara flipped through the attached press clippings and fundraiser flyers from that spring. In 2 different group shots, there was a man, middle-aged, balding, expressionless, standing near the benches in the background. He wasn't named. He wore no badge, no uniform, and no one had asked who he was. She checked the gym's visitor logs. They didn't go back far enough. Who is the man mentioned by the team, Mom? Do you think he's connected to the girl's disappearance? Comment, yes. If you think so, will Detective Quinlan finally solve the mystery of Anna and Lily's disappearance? Do you think they are still alive? Give the video a like and keep watching to find out. Also, let us know where you're tuning in from today. The unease was growing now. Slow but steady, Mara picked up the inner office phone and dialed records. This is Quinlan Cold Case Unit. I need access to a hardware evidence item labeled Surveillance Drive from Silver Hills Gym, 2010. Should be in deep storage or evidence vault. She hung up, then typed out a formal request to interview the Romero parents. After 12 years, she knew the meeting wouldn't be easy. But they were the last people who'd seen the girls alive, and no one had spoken to them in over a decade. She closed the case folder and looked around the office. Cold Cases was supposed to be about quiet work, paper time, persistence. But this one didn't feel cold. It felt like something was still watching, and the neighborhood was older now. The Romero house was tucked at the end of a short cul-de-sac in Rancho, one of those sun-fed developments from the early 2000s, where every third house looked the same. Detective Mara Quinlan parked at the curb and took a moment before getting out. The grass hadn't been edged in a while. The front porch light fixture leaned to one side, still the wind chime hanging under the eaves gave off a soft metallic tinkle like the sound of something still breathing. Elena Romero answered the door. She looked older than the last photo in the file. But not by much, just softer around the edges. Her hair was pulled into a clean twist, her blouse tucked neatly, the kind of presentable that suggested habit rather than effort. "We're not doing interviews," she said at first, her voice quiet but firm. Mara introduced herself again. "I'm not here for a quote or press. I just reopened the case this week. I'd like to talk about Anna and Lily." Elena studied her, then gave a small nod, and stepped aside. "Come in the living room." Smelled faintly of dust and lemon oil. Family photos still lined the mantel, school pictures, vacation shots, a studio portrait of the twins in matching tracksuits, laughing mid-summers. The television was off, but the remote sat on the armrest as if someone had just used it. The home didn't feel frozen in time, but it hadn't moved forward either. Elena poured water into 2 glasses and sat opposite Mara at the kitchen table. "My ex-husband lives across town now," she said. "We talk a few times a year, usually on their birthday." She gave a thin smile. "Some habits you don't break." Mara asked the preliminary questions with care, routine points about the day of the disappearance. Anything in the girl's behavior that had shifted Elena's answers were measured. Though her voice never cracked, the sadness had settled into something deeper, resignation. Maybe they were excited about a new routine. Lily was finally going to start vault. She was scared of it, but she wanted to keep up with Anna. "May I see their room?" Mara asked gently. Elena hesitated for just a moment, then stood and gestured down the hallway. The bedroom was at the end of the hall. Left side, the door had been painted soft lavender years ago. Still held the tiny star-shaped decals scattered across it. Mara took a slow walk around the room, careful not to touch anything on the closet door. Hung an old lanyard from a regional gymnastics event on the windowsill. A cracked plastic comb with glitter embedded in the handle. Then her eyes caught something above the wardrobe shelf. It was a folded practice jersey, half tucked behind a small photo box. Mara stepped onto the small stool by the bookcase and gently retrieved it. The jersey was pink with white side panels, the kind the girls wore to training sessions. As she turned it over, something caught the light, a single strand of hair woven loosely in the upper seam near the collar. It wasn't blonde. Mara held it up in the window light, and the strand was thick, dark brown, and longer than either Anna or Lily ever wore their hair. It stood out immediately against the white mesh of the fabric. "Elena," Mara called gently. "Did anyone with dark hair ever stay here, family, friends?" Elena appeared in the doorway. "No, not since before the girls were born. Their father's red-headed, everyone on my side's lighter." Mara didn't respond right away. She folded the jersey in a clean evidence sheet, then used tweezers to extract the hair and seal it in a paper envelope. "This may be nothing," she said, "but I'd like to run it anyway." Elena just nodded back in her car. Mara reviewed her notes, then opened the sealed bag and looked again at the hair. It could have been anything transferred from school, picked up at practice. But the jersey had been tucked on a high shelf undisturbed for years. It wasn't likely anyone had touched it since the girls vanished, if the strand didn't belong to the girls or their family. Then it meant someone else had been close enough to them to leave something behind. She keyed the radio and called in the lab submission. The lab call came in just before Mara Quinlan was already at her desk. When the analyst's voice filtered through her receiver, flat, clinical, apologetic. "The hair sample you submitted, human male, no follicle. So no nuclear DNA, and unfortunately, mitochondrial trace was too degraded to build a profile." Mara closed her eyes. "No match at all. None in state or federal databases. We cross-checked all non-felony profiles and partials in the system." Nothing viable could it have been contaminated. Not likely the sample was embedded in the fabric seam, had to be there a long time. Just old and broken down. If it was evidence, it's circumstantial. At best, she thanked him and hung up, staring at the open folder on her desk. 12 years of silence, one single physical artifact. And nothing to show for it. The other items from the duffel bag hadn't been much better. Sir, the ribbon showed partial degradation, no sweat residue or unique fibers. The leotard had degraded too. And water exposure had erased all contact prints. Even the schedule, the laminated gym timetable with Anna's name, was too smudged for. Anything usable forensics had confirmed the timeline. That's all. The duffel was authentic, its owner was real. But who had placed it in the lake, and when, remained a mystery. Mara stood across the room and opened the whiteboard, and she'd wheeled into her corner. She wrote in a black marker across the top. No one just vanishes below it. She listed 4 columns: homeschool gym. Other time to go back to basics. She spent the next 2 hours cross-referencing names from old reports. The Romero family, Elena mother, Richard father, now remarried. Monica cousin lived out of state at the time. Teachers, bus drivers, one neighbor who used to babysit, moved away in 2015. Silver Hills gym staff, head coach Daniel Larrick, 3 assistant trainers, 2 rotating volunteers, a part-time cleaner, a desk administrator. No mention of substitutes, no indication of unusual staff changes, but something still felt off the email. Mara's sent was short, almost sterile by design. Ms. Alvarez, I'm currently reinvestigating the 2010 disappearance of Anna and Lily Romero. I believe you trained with them at Silver Hills Gymnastics. I'd like to ask a few questions. No press, no pressure, just a conversation. The reply came 4 hours later. I always thought someone would ask sooner. I'm free Friday after 3. I live in Sacramento now. Maya Alvarez waited at a shaded cafe table off J Street, her hands wrapped around a half-runk iced tea, and she stood when Mara approached and offered a nervous smile. Eyes flicking to the side, as if checking for someone else. Mara thanked her for meeting and sat down across from her. Maya's hair was longer now, dyed a burnt copper, but her posture still had the stiff, practiced poise of a gymnast, and she didn't waste time. I wasn't close to them. Maya said Anna was always more advanced. Lily was sweet but younger. Mara nodded. You were at the gym that semester, though, leading up to March. Yeah, I was 14. I quit 2 months after the twins went missing. Why? Maya looked down. Her voice dropped. Because something was wrong. She told it, carefully halting in places like trying not to incriminate herself with memory. Larrick liked working with the younger girls, said they needed more focus, or that they were easier to shape. He'd stretch them out after group practice, just them and him. He'd whisper stuff to Anna, sometimes jokes, maybe, but it made me feel weird watching it, like I wasn't supposed to see it. Mara asked if anyone else noticed. Some of us did, Maya said. But nobody ever said anything. My mom told me once when I mentioned it, that coaches are like family. And honestly, I think part of me believed that. And this man you mentioned in your email, the one always in the back? Maya shifted in her chair. He wasn't staff. He never coached, never spoke, but he was there during evening sessions. I remember him most during winter. He'd sit in the corner near the water dispenser, didn't even pretend to be interested in the routines, just watched. Did anyone acknowledge him? Maya shook her head. Not that I saw, but I caught Coach Larrick nodding to him once, like they had a signal. Mara paused. Did you ever see him speak to the girls? No. As the conversation tapered, Maya hesitated before reaching into her bag. She pulled out an old phone screen cracked in one corner and unlocked it. I don't know if this helps. It's dumb. But I took a photo once because the angle made my front tuck look decent. The man is there in the background. I only noticed years later. She slid the phone across. Mara took it carefully. The image was grainy, poorly lit and tilted, but unmistakable. Maya midair. And behind her, a man seated on the bleacher road just inside the frame. Balding, pale, narrow face expression. Flat-watching Mara asked to forward herself a copy. Maya agreed. "You're the first person who asked me about any of this," Maya said quietly. "I thought maybe I was overreacting." Mara looked up from the phone. "You weren't." Back at the precinct, Mara uploaded the image to the department's internal facial recognition unit. Facial recognition hit a confirmed ID just after midnight. Raymond Shaw, born 1967, last recorded address in San Bernardino County. The DMV photo was a match to the man in Maya Alvarez's photo. The system flagged his record-sealed juvenile history and one incident as an adult questioned but not charged in a child endangerment case. In Fresno County, 1999. The file was sparse, almost too sparse. What stood out even more? There was no record of Shaw being listed on staff visitor logs or volunteer rosters at Silver Hills Gym. Not even once. That meant no background checks, no entry records, and no official acknowledgement of his involvement at the facility, yet in team photo after photo. There he was consistently on premises over a 3-month stretch in early 2010. Mara stared at the composite board in her office. 2 faces were now linked by proximity and pattern, and she keyed in Shaw's social and tracked his last recorded movement, an out-of-state DMV registration in Northern California, dated June 2010. Just 2 months after Anna and Lily Romero vanished, it took Mara a day and a half to confirm the lead. Raymond Shaw was now living under the name Rick Sellers. In a patch of wooded back roads east of Redding. The property was a single wide trailer parked off a gravel loop beside a collapsed greenhouse, and an aging pickup that hadn't moved in months. A rusty mailbox with Sellers painted on it leaned sideways against a bent post. She didn't go alone. Detective Ross Vale accompanied her, officially there for backup. Unofficially there because Mara wasn't sure how Shaw would react. They dressed plain. No badges, no threats. Shaw opened the door, a crack shirtless and squinting into the sun. He looked older than his file suggested. Creased face, thinning hair, a quick darting of the eyes that said he was always clocking angles. "Yeah," he asked of Mr. Sears. Mara kept it light. "We're working a community case out of San Bernardino, looking into a few historical records. You lived down there in 2010, correct?" Shaw shrugged. "Been a while. Don't remember too much about that place. Had a job for a bit, didn't stick. We're mostly trying to verify who you might have worked with during that time. Any chance you recall a Daniel Larrick? There was a beat name, sounds familiar." Shaw said did construction. Maybe Mara tilted her head, feigning a vague smile. "Actually, youth athletics, Silver Hills Gymnastics." Shaw scratched his chin. Yeah. Yeah, maybe rings a bell. You never helped out there. Volunteers, anything like that. Another beat. Maybe they let the silence stretch long enough to become uncomfortable." Vale stepped in. "We've got a few old photos we're verifying." He said, "Memory joggers, mind if we show you one?" Mara pulled up a printed image from the meet and greet event. Shaw seated just behind the main line of gymnasts, clear as day. His eyes flicked toward it, then away. But just long enough, that ain't me. Mara didn't respond right away. She slid the photo back into the file. "We're also doing outreach with some of the former students." She said, "Do you remember a girl named Anna Romero?" Shaw smirked a flash too quick. Little Annie, sure, she was sharp. It was subtle, but Mara's body stilled at the name. The nickname Annie. It had never appeared in police reports, school records, press releases, or interview transcripts. The parents had always called her Anna, her teachers too. Only someone who knew her personally would know that name. Mara glanced once at Vale, who gave the faintest nod. "They didn't push further. Thanks for your time." Mara said lightly, "That's all we needed." Shaw watched them walk down the short drive. He didn't ask why they'd come. He didn't ask if they were coming back in the car. Neither of them spoke until they were back on the highway. "You hear it?" Mara asked. "Finally, little Annie." Vale confirmed. Mara leaned back, thinking, A little too intimate for someone who just did construction at the gym, the surveillance on Raymond Shaw had been quiet for 2 days. No phone calls, no visitors, no strange activity, just a man sitting alone on a porch most afternoons, pretending nothing was unraveling around him. That changed on the third morning. While Shaw stepped into town for groceries, the surveillance team seized a window of opportunity. A tech officer, gloved and efficient, entered the trailer with a narrowly approved sweep order for external communications. He was in and out in 15 minutes, and what he found tucked inside the lining of Shaw's bedroom mattress, a burner phone cracked and heat-warped. Likely discarded months earlier, no SIM. But the phone's onboard memory still had traces, GPS logs recently deleted. Not wiped back at the lab. A recovery scan pulled coordinates from the past year. One point stood out, a cluster of pings in a rural area northeast of Big Bear Lake. One specific location showed up twice. Mara pulled the coordinates. Her face went tight. It was within a mile of a cabin once owned by Daniel Larrick. Property records showed he had sold it in 2014. A quiet cash deal, no listed realtor. The place didn't look like much on approach. Wood-warped exterior. Sun-bleached deck roof sagging under time and snow. Mara arrived with 2 forensics investigators, a deputy from the local jurisdiction, and a warrant tight enough to squeeze marrow inside. The air was musty, but untouched. The furniture was basic and coated with a fine layer of dust, no recent signs of activity. Yet there was something peculiar about the kitchen. Floorboards ran uneven. A section near the center dipped slightly underfoot. Mara knelt. No squeak, no give. Then she spotted it, 4 screws set deeper than the rest, head slightly cleaner. A fingerprint brush revealed smudges. Someone had opened this, and not long ago, forensics retrieved tools. The panel lifted with a creak beneath it, a wooden ladder leading down into darkness. And the drop wasn't far, maybe 7 feet, but the temperature changed immediately. The air was stale-sealed. A motion sensor light blinked on as the lead tech descended. What it revealed made everyone freeze. The space was soundproofed, thick acoustic panels screwed into the foundation walls. There was a small mattress, child-sized, pressed into one corner. A second one lay just across from it. Both covered in faded blankets patterned with cartoon moons and stars. Doodles lined the wall, faded with age, near the far corner. Metal chains lay rusted and unlatched. A child's sock still clung to one link, and the air held a copper tang. And the forensics team swept the area. Blood residue was found near the baseboards. 2 samples confirmed partial DNA matches, familial to the Romero sisters. The girls had been here. They had lived here. One of the texts emerged, voice low. No recent trace, but degradation levels suggest it hasn't been used in at least 4 years, but it changed everything. This wasn't a case of immediate abduction and presumed murder. This was long-term captivity, sustained, controlled, and hidden. The knock came at 6:14 a.m. Shaw opened his trailer door, groggy, muttering something incoherent, until he saw Detective Vale standing beside Mara Quinlan. Both with neutral expressions and a signed arrest warrant in hand this time. Mara said flatly, "We're not just talking." He didn't resist. Maybe he knew it was over at the station. Shaw sat in an interview room. Under warm fluorescence, sweat dotted his forehead. He tapped his fingers against the metal tabletop. Restless but quiet. Marcia entered with a folder and a calm expression. She didn't speak right away. She pulled out 4 8x10 photos and laid them one by one in front of him. The hatch, the soundproof room, the mattress with cartoon prints, the crayon drawing. Shaw's expression didn't change, but his breathing slowed just a bit. "I've never seen that before," he said. She slid over the final photo, a forensics sheet with the blood match report, familial DNA confirmed, Romero lineage. They were there. "Raymond," she said, "for years. And you helped put them there. This is your one chance to speak for yourself. Before the system speaks for you." It came suddenly. No build, no drama. Just a short exhale from Shaw, like air finally leaking from a cracked valve. "It wasn't my idea." Mara said nothing. "Just waited. He told me it was temporary, that the girls were in danger, that people wouldn't get it. that he was the only one who really understood them. He rubbed his face, the pressure deepening the lines beneath his eyes. Dan planned it all. I drove. Mara didn't move. She let him speak. He planned everything. I didn't ask questions at first. He said he was protecting them from parents who didn't understand, from systems that would twist the truth. Said it was like a sanctuary. That's what he called it, a sanctuary, Shaw. Nodded that day. I waited in the van around back. Not the gym parking lot, we used the side lot. Nobody ever locked the gate. He brought them out, one by one. They didn't scream. I think he drugged them. I don't know. I didn't see their eyes. Mara fought the tightening in her throat. And you took them to the cabin? Mara asked. Shaw nodded. Stayed there for 6 months. I brought groceries, supplies. Never spoke to them. I just handed off the bags and left. Why, he said if I didn't help, he'd go down and take me with him. He had stuff. Photos from back when I was stupid and young. Mara stared at him cold. And when they outgrew the cabin. Nice 2018, Shaw whispered. He said it was time for something permanent. I helped move them to his new place, told me I'd never have to come back. Shaw scribbled the address on the back of an evidence envelope, a suburban lot in a newer development 2 counties away. Quiet neighborhood, 2-car garage, no police attention ever drawn. Everything looks normal on the outside, he said. Look under the garage, you wouldn't even see it, unless you knew to pull back the wall panel behind the water heater. Mara's breath stilled. They're still alive. He didn't answer immediately. His eyes glide, said, the outside world would ruin them now, and you never said anything for 12 years, Shaw swallowed. I was afraid. By the time Shaw finished, the room felt suffocating. Mara rose without another word. Outside the interview room, she dialed the tactical unit. This is Detective Quinlan, she said. I need a team assembled for a high-risk warrant execution suspect is. Daniel Larrick's structure has concealed architectural features, potential live victims on site. The sun hadn't yet broken through the clouds when the tactical unit moved in Larrick's home, sat at the edge of a manicured neighborhood in Lucerne Valley. Stucco walls, trimmed hedges, a red swing set in the front yard, no alarms, no visible security. It looked like every other home on the street, clean, quiet, unremarkable. The garage was locked, but that didn't slow the team, and they moved fast, systematic. The back wall was just as Shaw had described. Insulated drywall behind the water heater seemed so fine they disappeared in plain sight. A technician ran his hand over the corner molding. Tapping, a soft, hollow echo answered, and they cut the panel clean behind it, a staircase narrow, unfinished, leading down into darkness. There was no need to kick the door. It wasn't locked. It had never needed to be. Not from the inside. The tactical lead was the first to descend behind him. Mara moved carefully, flashlight. Raised heart loud in her ears. The smell struck first, not rot, but aged sweat and enclosed air. The beam of her light swept across concrete, then cotton-piled mattresses, 2 small ones pushed side by side in the far corner. Then they saw movement. 2 girls sat in the Gymnast backs against the wall hands, clasped tight. Their skin was pale from years without sun, their hair limp and uneven, cut with kitchen scissors. Their eyes, startled but alert, tracked every motion in the room. Mara stepped forward, slowly lowering her light. Anna, Lily, they didn't speak, then the older one. Anna, now 24, but looking barely 16, whispered, "Please just let us go." Mara didn't move. She crouched gently, setting her badge on the floor like it might break the air. "We're not going to hurt you. You're safe now. I'm Detective Quinlan. We're going to get you 2 out of here." "All right." Medical responders moved in with quiet urgency. Anna and Lily were escorted out on foot, wrapped in blankets, assisted. But walking Mara stood outside the property, watching them step into the transport van, and they didn't cry, they didn't speak. But when the door closed behind them, Lily reached for Anna's hand. Inside, every surface of the hidden room was documented. A camera had been rigged into the corner ceiling, unpowered now, but wired for remote viewing. A stack of videotapes sat in a locked cabinet. Mara didn't open them yet. She knew what was likely there. The chain of custody had begun. And now, so had the real horror. Larrick was arrested without incident, That same afternoon, he was standing on the sidelines of a youth coaching seminar in Temecula, clipboard in hand. When two plain officers flanked him, he looked surprised and then confused, then quiet. "What's this about?" he asked once he didn't repeat the question back home. His wife was already gone. Child Protective Services had moved fast, placing his children with temporary guardians, pending full investigation. She hadn't known by midnight. The story was everywhere. National headlines, emergency broadcasts, network specials. Missing Romero's sisters found alive. After 12 years, coach arrested in shocking cold case break. The house of lies, hidden in plain sight. Mara stood in her office, watching the press conference on mute. The station chief spoke calmly, but the crowd roared behind him. Reporters, cameras, questions. She didn't need to hear the noise. She already knew. The fallout would come in waves, lawsuits, resignations, talk show debates. But for now, just for a moment, she let the noise be someone else's problem. Raymond Shaw sat in silence as the prosecutor laid out the terms: full cooperation, recorded testimony, and no withholding of details. Not one omission in exchange, a life sentence with parole. Eligibility at 75. He accepted the deal with the weariness of a man already buried. The confession was submitted into the official record. It was damning. Coherent and unflinching in it, Shaw described 12 years of control, relocation, and compliance. His role, though limited, was integral and unforgivable. Daniel Larrick's plea hearing lasted under 30 minutes, presented with the handwritten journals recovered from his home, safe, detailing routines, punishments, and emotional manipulation photographs showing the girls from each year. They had been missing, documented, aged, dressed as children. Long after they weren't. Shaw's full confession, naming Larrick as the orchestrator, and constant presence, and most powerful of all. Anna and Lily's recorded testimony, voices thin but certain, recounting how their coach had told them their parents were gone, how he gave them different names, the inappropriate things he did to them. Larrick sat motionless. He didn't look at the victims, not once when asked how he pleaded. He simply replied, "Guilty." The judge sentenced him to 3 consecutive life terms, without parole. No family member attended his sentencing. The recovery center was nestled in a quiet part of St. Louis Obispo, intentionally distant from both news cameras and curious onlookers. The girls were under the care of trauma specialists. Anna spoke first. She asked to see her mother. Arrangements were made. Mara stood outside the room during the reunion, watching through the narrow glass pane. Mrs. Romero, older now, thinner, stood in the doorway, like she was afraid to breathe. Then Anna whispered, "Mom," and Lily said it too. Their mother crossed the room in seconds. There were no words after that. Just the collapse of 3 bodies into one another, 12 years of absence, pressed into one trembling embrace later that evening, as Mara prepared to leave. Mrs. Romero stopped her in the parking lot. "I don't know what to say." She said, "You don't have to." Mara replied. Mrs. Romero's eyes welled. "You gave me my girls back." Back at her office, the cold caseboard was bare. Just the pinholes remained, where the photos had once hung, and the girls would face a long recovery. But the case was closed. 2 sisters had come home. Mara locked the case file in a drawer and stared out the window. The sky was gray. A storm was coming in somewhere. Another family was still waiting. There would always be more, but for now, this was enough. Thanks for watching till the end. If you enjoyed this story, give this video a like if you haven't already, and subscribe for more.